The following program is brought to you by More Broadcasting. For more information, visit us at morebroadcasting.com.
Hello and welcome.
This is Americast,
Hello.
a show for Americans,
Hello, boys.
by Americans, about our love for the Mike O'Mara Show.
We love you.
And all the shows on the More Network.
The Mark and Lowell Show.
The Mark and who?
Tech 411 with Oscar Santana and Todd Moore.
Here's your wonderful host, Marcus Certa.
This episode of Americast has been brought to you by your Valentine's Day gift headquarters, the Mike O'Mara Show Amazon page. Right now, save up to 75% off selected watches, 60% off selected jewelry, and another 20% off on both when you use your Amazon Rewards card. You'll find clothing, fragrances, and so much more when you shop at the Mike O'Mara Show Amazon store. Visit and bookmark the Amazon page at MikeO'MaraShow.com today, and thank you. Welcome back, everybody, to Americast. I need to welcome a very special guest, the first TMOS player, but the guy who brings color to the Mike O'Mara Show, Oscar Santana. Welcome, Oscar.
Well, thank you. I don't even know how to take that. I figure color as in, I spice it up, or it also could be the fact that I'm Latin and I'm brown. Either way, I guess both are factual, so I'm happy to be here.
You should take it both ways, because in both cases, you are correct. That is the fact, because you do bring a lot of color. The most important thing that you bring to the show is you bring a level of openness that sometimes the guys have a hard time with. And it makes them uncomfortable, but at the same time, it brings up a lot of discussion because you are really open about your life. And has it always been this way? Or, I mean, is this natural for you, or is this something that you think is important?
I think it's important. I think that the guys that I grew up idolizing in the talk radio business, they really, at least it felt to me, and I hope this conveys to the audience, that it really is a privilege, and I know that sounds hacky and douchey to say, but it's a privilege, and I feel privileged to be able to be on a show like the Mike O'Mara Show that people make time out of their days to listen to every day. And let's be honest, when Mike left terrestrial radio and we started this endeavor 2 years ago, we were excited, and I knew in my heart of hearts that this was possible. But I never envisioned the type of success that we're having now. I'd hoped, but I didn't envision it. So, to your point, I in my eyes, if these people are going to, and yourself, and including, are going to take the time to take an hour out of your day, 2 hours a day, an hour and a half now, to listen to the show, I want you to feel like you have an unbridled, unfiltered access to my life. And I think that a lot of talk show hosts these days, and some are just handicapped simply by the format they're in.
Yeah.
But if you have the ability to do a hot talk format, much like we do, or a comedy podcast, much like we do on the Mike O'Mara Show, then I think you shouldn't be afraid to show all, your freckles, your zits. No one's perfect. I mean, I just saw a story the other day, Marcus, where the landscape of American television is changing, and the days of the Brady Bunch and the Facts of Life are gone, and now it's the days of Homeland and these cable and telecommunication, and these cable networks are just taking over what really mirrors American life. And a guy came on, an expert, TV expert, far above my pay grade, comes on and says, "Look, Homeland's a great show, and so is Californication on Showtime, but they're not doing anything different but showing just an uglier side of life. It's real life. The Brady Bunch didn't really ever exist, and if you're lucky to live in that ecosystem and that family structure, then God bless you, but it really doesn't exist everywhere." And shows like Homeland and these other shows that show like the darker side of our culture, those are shows that people think about. Now they're TV shows clearly, but I like bring a real sense of reality, and I think humor, it's cathartic to talk about. It's almost therapy for myself as well.
No, I get it, and it's a great comparison that you bring up television because, with your experience in radio and our combined experience in radio and our love of television as well, television for the normal household has taken the direction where everybody has access or is accessing things like the HBOs of the world, the FXs of the world, these cable networks that are taking content and pushing it to the limits where radio, terrestrial radio, has not. Now, with the advent of satellite radio, I remember when it first came about and everyone in terrestrial radio was screaming that it was going to bring an end to radio because these guys were going to be able to break down barriers and they were going to say what they wanted. And it really didn't happen. And the adoption to the consumer base didn't happen in the way that television has been adopted. And people have reached out for that content, which has been thicker, darker, in some regards, has been edgier. But radio has not made that transition. So to go back to the original point, with you being so open, now I know that you've got flexibility with Steve Bridges over at KCJJ, and he has let you guys do kind of whatever you really wanted. But you still have to play within some rules. Now being on TNT, and with the thought that you guys are going to continue to expand with more stations, do you feel like you have to pull back a little bit?
No, the beauty about being a broadcaster, and I use that term loosely, and again, it's funny that we're even having this conversation because I was just having this conversation with one of the guys I play soccer with on Sundays. I never shot for a line guy I played soccer in the mornings on Sundays. And he said, how are you handling the transition? And I said, if you really go back and listen to them, if it wasn't a bonus show, we weren't cursing. And kind of the magic of doing a radio program and doing it on terrestrial radio now in a like a market like DC, which, by the way, the FCC is right up the street, is it's the dance of conveying your message and seeing how creative you can be to really paint a picture for the audience. So, if anything, it's gotten a little more fun because you realize that you have to, and not that we didn't realize before, but now even more so than ever, that there's an audience out there and there's an FCC, and you have to make sure that you entertain, but you also live within the guidelines, because if you don't, you're not going to be on there anymore.
Yeah, but we've noticed, too, that recently Mike has made more and more comments about how he realizes that he's on radio in his backyard. Yeah,
and that's true, and I'm glad you brought that up. For example, there was an episode when I talked about a couple guys that I worked with, and they're good guys, like salt of the earth guys, but they happen to be in kind of this faction of survivalists, and they have bug out bags.
Yeah.
And I talk about that, and I don't think about it again when I leave work, because I'm not making my own bug out bag, and I don't have one. I don't subscribe to that line of thought in my life, but they're my friends. And I come back a week later, or stop by the office, and they're like, "Hey, I heard you talk about us on the radio." And I said, "You listen to the radio? Like you forget that you're actually on the radio." And in some senses, it's flattering. In other senses, it freaks you out because we've lived on the web for so long outside of KCJJ that you're on in your backyard, and anything goes. Like even when I spoke about my becoming the president of my HOA. After I did that show, I was driving home, and I said, whoa, we're on the radio now. Settle down. You just met these people.
So you think that the walls are kind of closing in on you a little bit now because your privacy, you have less privacy now because you're in that marketplace?
It is. But to be fair, before I joined the Mike O'Mara show, I think for Big O and Dukes, one of Chad and I's, I guess, not claims to fame, but the way, and I can't speak for him, but I can speak for myself, that I never wanted to lie to the audience. We never wanted to do fake bits. We never wanted to contrive in a way that we felt we were taking advantage of the audience. And that's just the broadcaster like I've become from that show. And to bring it to Mike O'Mara, I'm happy he's on the same page. He doesn't want to. You're there to entertain, but there's no reason that you can't entertain with four like really smart guys in a room that are just really talking about their lives and current events. Everybody brings something to the table. Buzz is just an amazing newsman, and in himself, I think, has come out as more of a personality on the program in this incarnation of the Mike O'Mara show than it was on terrestrial 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, Rob has come really, because he has the opportunity to, has really been able to showcase his abilities to host a show. And the way he drives that audio vault, it's like a staple of my day. And I know everybody says I power down and I tease Rob till the cows come home, but he really, everyone in that room, and Mike's, it's without saying, like, he's just a genius. The way that he does those voices, the way he comes up with the content for the show, that I get to sit in that room and work these three guys that you might hear me bust their balls more often than not on the show. I feel privileged to be there because, one, I get a front row seat to a great show, and then two, I get to sit there and really become a better broadcaster by working with some of the best in the business.
Yeah, you have a real knack for busting balls. You fit in really well with that group. But along those lines, from being a listener from day one to today and moving forward, I know in my own personal experience that if you're not busting my balls, you guys don't like me. And
yeah, it's a tough room, let me tell you.
Yeah, listening to the relationship that you've developed with those guys, you guys clicked in episode 1, but the relationship and the bond has grown over these last 3 years, and you can tell, especially between you and Rob. And I think over the last year, the intensity between the two of you seems to have increased, which probably means that you guys are having an affair on the sidelines, I'm guessing.
in Rob's dreams. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair assumption. I think that we were lucky enough to find that chemistry at the beginning of the show, and that's something that Mike alludes to once in a while. When Mike first talked about myself joining the program, I was hesitant as much as he was, and I said, look, let's give it 2 weeks, and there's not chemistry there. I don't want to force anything.
Yeah.
Because that wouldn't be fun for him, and wouldn't be fun for me. And we found that chemistry, and the chemistry, it's like a relationship. It just grows over the time we spend together. A good relationship, a healthy one, and especially with Rob and I, I enjoy his humor. He gets my jokes. I get his jokes. And there's no hurt feelings. And like you said, if we're not like busting your chops, then we're not talking to you. It's not necessarily something wrong, but it's like, you've kind of entered or breached the perimeter, as I like to call it, when we've made fun of you in one way or another, because that's just how we show our acceptance. And to be in that room and do it with Rob, as far as the quick wit that he has, just to come right back at me and for myself to go right back at him, that's some of the funnest times in my life, because you'll hear it on the mic and you'll see it on Newsstream when I'll sit there and I can't contain myself. Like I know I have like a laugh, but there are times when I can't even control my own laugh, and that's when like we're really just having like kind of an orthodox kind of fun of our own. Much to Mike's chagrin, because he gets a little pissed about it, because he's like, hello, we're doing a show here. But it's fun. We do have some chemistry, and there is a bond there with Rob.
How would you describe the chemistry on this show to the chemistry on your other shows? You got Big O and Dukes, you got Tech 411. God knows what else you're going to add to it later on. But right now, I mean, each one, I can tell the relationships are a bit different. But how would you describe them?
Yeah, they are. Let me start with Big O and Dukes is a show, if for those in America who aren't aware. I started my career with Big O and Dukes, and it's with a phenomenal broadcaster, Chad Dukes, that does afternoon drive here now for the sports station. And that show, and I've said it on the program before, and I've said it to Mike and the guys, that'll always be the show that I helped create with Chad. So that dynamic is like, really, we are brothers. Yeah. And we are brothers in the way that we were locked in the studio together trying to put a demo together 10 years ago, and then we created a career that took us across the country and back. So that dynamic in itself, I think, I can't compare anything else to. But it's almost like sacred ground for Big O and Dukes. And it does not to say that I don't have the same feelings for the Michael Mara show, but that's 10 years compared to 3 years.
Yeah.
The best comparison, and not to leave Todd out, is that with Todd, I have a friendship and we have a love for technology. And we always dreamt of doing a show, and we did on terrestrial radio when we were on WJFK about tech. And we don't get paid for it. I don't know how many times we check the download numbers or who knows what happens. Much like you, it's a passion project, so I don't really consider that work at times. There are times where, the last thing you want to do is another show before you head home, but the fact that people listen to it is amazing. It blows my mind. It's getting better. We're getting ready for a relaunch because I have a little more time on my hands that we're going to really put a little more effort into the program to kind of cater to our audience where it's not as much technical know-how, which we don't really put that much into, but more of an entertainment podcast where we talk about technology, but in more of a conversational way. And you'll notice that as the season continues with Tech 411. The common thread with all these shows is that there's a feeling as a broadcaster, and you know this as well, Marcus, and anybody that has any passion for anything knows this. When they finish a project or they have just finished a chapter in the book or they have just given a presentation at work, when you hit on all cylinders, whether it's Big O and Dukes, it's the Mike O'Mara Show, or Tech 411, you are on cloud nine because you know that you've put a product out that you are proud of. And more often than not, I get that from all three shows. And with Mike, the barometer for the Mike O'Mara Show, because all I had to compare to the Mike O'Mara Show was Big O and Dukes, and when I knew that it could actually work with me and the guys, or the guys and myself, was when we did the third show in from when the podcast first started. We all kind of loosened up a little bit and started really talking instead of just explaining to the audience what we were doing.
Yeah.
I remember getting in my car and feeling like I was leaving the radio station after a Big O and Duke show. It's a weird high you get where you're like, okay, this is it, and that was fun.
Speaking to the podcast itself with TMOS, one of the things that it's come up, I think recently, at least that's the way I felt as a listener, is that it sounds like you want to formalize the program or at least make the production process feel more formalized than you've had in the past. Just before the holidays, you had the discussion amongst the group about changing the TMOS living room studio to be more of a actual studio. I know that on Big O and Dukes, you guys you moved from the basement to a space that feels more like a studio. So
yeah, we built one.
Is there a reason for that particular motivation? I mean, being there just this past week, I was really comfortable. You guys seemed really comfortable. I think it brings a certain level of comfort. But is there something that you think the show is missing by being so laid back in that environment?
No, I don't think it's missing anything. I think it's in my nature, one, to kind of evolve any project that I'm involved in.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need a new. It's funny because I have the same conversation with myself at least twice a week when I'm in that studio. When I walk in the studio, I love where I sit. I love the way it's laid out. I think it's a living room studio for a reason.
Yeah.
The only issue I have with the layout has to do with kind of the ergonomics of the studio. And when I initially wanted to do a makeover and really look into what we could do, I thought, if Mike is really dedicating this room in his home to be part of the TMOS brand, and it's not really going to kind of serve double duty as we initially thought as a living room, then we could make this a soundproof room and as great a room as we wanted, just like you would in a real radio station.
Yeah.
And then as the conversations, and not just conversations with yourself, but conversations with other listeners that I would have on Facebook or Twitter. By the way, at Oscar Radio, give me a follow. I think I hit 10,000 followers by the end of the year, or before I die. I would say that people said it was kind of sacred ground for people where they said, why would you want to change the layout? So I've shifted from a complete studio makeover to a ergonomic makeover where Mike doesn't have to reach as far as he's been reaching for his sound effects. I think if access leads to content, and if he doesn't have to lean over as much and they're kind of in front of him, he could possibly use them more because that's just the way DJs were set up. And as far as just the sound, the studio sounds great. I wouldn't change that. There's no improving there. What I just would like to feel like when Mike sits down, because, as you know, he complains a lot. There isn't like a complaint about where's the printer, what's going to happen, how do I get this done. And I think that's where that stemmed from, because I like to fix things. So how can I fix it? I'll fix it this way. We'll redo the studio, but it doesn't have to be that drastic. Because the more and more I talk to people, they don't want it to change. I mean, we could get new furniture, but they still want it to be a living room.
Right. I think I'm in that camp because of the fact that it has become a part of the environment, and especially since the efforts that you personally put forward with everybody else to improve cameras and to make video an important part of the show. That living room sets a stage, and it's not just 4 guys doing a show. Or 5 guys doing a show. It's 5 guys having a conversation, and that living room is a part of that conversation.
It's a lot of fun.
Let's take a break, and when we get back, let's talk about Tech 4-in-1 and more of our conversation with Oscar Santana right here on Omericast.
Hey folks, it's your old buddy Rob Spiewak with a question. Do you miss the way radio used to be? Oh, it might take you a while to remember it, but there was a time when you actually used to listen to the radio for music. Well, thanks to more broadcasting, you still can, because each and every week I do the Rob Spiewak Show, 4 hours of boss radio that is fast, funny, and it is fun. Check it out, robradio.com, and don't forget the extra B. That stands for music.
Rob Spiewak.
This segment of Omericast has been brought to you by the Mike O'Mara Show 2013 VIP package. Enhance your VIPness and enjoy all the TMOS bonus shows, including the video-on-demand feeds, plus the live video feed of the weekly show. And it's all now available for your mobile device. Some packages also come with the DVD of the TMOS Reno show and the Gabe Strine animated series. The 2013 yearly subscriptions are available now at MikeO'MaraShow.com. Just click on the word bonus at the top left-hand side of MikeO'MaraShow.com. That's the Mike O'Mara Show 2013 VIP package, available now. Welcome back to Omericast. I'm talking with Oscar Santana, and let me talk to you about Tech 4-in-1, because you mentioned that you're looking at evolving that show more. This last week, you brought in Ant Pruitt to talk about Android, and he's got experience with Android and as a developer himself. Is Ant going to be a more permanent feature of the show? Are you kind of auditioning people for that part? Because I know that you've heard the feedback that people think that it's Apple 4-in-1 more so than Tech 4-in-1.
Because it is. It absolutely is. We're just we're only as good as what we have around us. And while Todd has every device known to man in front of him, he just develops for them. He doesn't use them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I think a lot, and this is where my brand loyalty comes into play. And by the way, I think it's here to say, I can't speak for Todd. I think Todd loved him too. Todd brought him on the program, so I wouldn't say he didn't. So Ant will work with us. We're going to have different contributors that come on the program every week. So we're working on getting guests on. We're working on actually booking people that people want to hear from in the industry. So yeah, that's a good evolution. And Ant isn't going anywhere. He did such a great job with this. It was fun to have another voice in the room. But I think a lot has not with just Ant or the show in itself. I think a lot of this Android, fever that has come, especially to any show that's involved in talking about tech, is that the products have gotten so much better. Well, it pains me to say that Apple has such a superior product and such a foothold in the industry for such a long time that you can't help, and you wouldn't be a responsible host really if you didn't address how great these new Samsung phones that are coming out are, or these new tablets that are coming out are. I can't speak to the BlackBerry, but there has been a leveling of the playing field in some instances as far as the quality of product that's being delivered to the general public, and it's time we address it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I am a techie myself. You can't be in radio and not be a techie to a certain extent, but I think it's always come down to the design. The difference between Androids and Apple for a long time was about the same difference as Windows to DOS. And now that, especially with things like Ice Cream Sandwich and Jelly Bean, the design has improved with the OS. So the phones have improved, the OS has improved. And you can't ignore the fact when you see the numbers, how Samsung has outsold iPhones, that this is a huge market. And when you're looking at Apple, they've got beautifully designed products, beautifully designed interfaces for easy use. But Google is everywhere. You're using it in everything, every day, whether it's your work or your personal life. And so it just makes sense. I myself have an Android phone because it integrates with everything so flawlessly.
There's no argument here. I'm a Google user. I use Gmail for just about everything, and I use Google Drive. It's like baked into my life now. I don't know what I'd do without it. So yeah, it has to be addressed, and we will. The show in itself, as far as the formula is concerned, and you'll hear it like you heard with Ant on the program last week. I just want people to tune in and not to be like, you have to want to clearly hear something about tech, but I don't want you to feel like we're talking above you. And I don't know if we ever conveyed that, but we're going to rest assured that this year is going to be, I think, a great year for this show to break out and just keep it fun and keep it interesting. And it'll be something that is not necessarily remedial as far as content is concerned. So we're not necessarily not going to talk about tech stuff, but we just won't get into the coding of a, the C++ or whatever it is, because I don't even know that on the show. We'll talk about just in broad strokes technology in general.
Would you compare it? And I'm just imagining, because I'm a fan of cars, and you guys were talking about cars this past week. I'm a big fan of the show Top Gear. And
I love it. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. You're absolutely right. You could tune into Top Gear, whether it's the UK version or the US version. I play the UK version, the far superior product.
Absolutely.
But they have a great time, right? They have a great time telling you about a car. You could care less about a car, but you'll sit there and you'll be like, wow, these guys are just having fun, and look what they're doing.
They make a Prius look fun to drive.
Because they're so funny in the way they talk about it. It's great.
Exactly. So are there any other, you've got 3 podcasts right now. You've got a full-time job. You're maintaining a relationship. You got soccer. God knows what else you're doing. I'm not sure when you're fitting in bathroom time. What else could you possibly add to this list, man?
Marcus, well, you should know this, that I have not, this is an exclusive for you. I have, on a full-time basis, I've left Earthwalk Communications.
Oh.
Yes, and it was not necessary. It wasn't on any bad terms. It was my decision. Simply to, there's always been a dream of mine to kind of really be able to focus 100% on these creative products, because, as you know, I think, if you're doing something you love and something you dream, it's really not work. You might put in 15 hours. Yeah, it is work technically, but you don't feel like the same type of work that you would feel when you're just doing a 9 to 5. And my CEO at Earthwalk, when we got the terrestrial radio gig, because think about this, you got a guy who, one, I thank him for everything he's ever done for me. And Earthwalk, if you don't know, is basically the parent company of Mangraves.
Yeah.
And I started working there 4 years ago, and this gentleman, Evan McConnell, really went out of his way to give me a shot. But he also, I think, in turn, I helped build a very successful company in Mangrave, and I was able to take Earthwalk to the next level as far as that 14-year business is concerned. But I was leaving in the middle of the day to go do the Mike O'Mara show. So if you've got a key employee, because I became vice president of that company, if you've got a key employee that's leaving in the middle of the day for 2 hours and he is missing that block of time, he's got to make up that block of time, one, and I would. So I would leave the office at 7, 8, 9 o'clock sometimes. And then 2, when the year comes, which is the 4th year, so my 5th year, comes, and we found out we're going to be on WTNT, I was going to have to miss another hour and a half at the very least of the day. So that was a 3.5 hour block. And I had a goal for Mangrates, which we met this past year, which I was very happy about. And I'm not going to get into the financials of it, but to build a company from scratch, it's something that I'm always going to be proud of. And we were able to reach my own goal myself. So I was happy to leave that company while I'm still going to contract for them. I was happy to leave that company in such good hands, such a great place. Earthwalk is having one of its best years. And for myself, I said, I really love doing radio, and I really love doing marketing. Some of the best parts of marketing for me were doing the ad buys across all platforms and using my own social capital and my own connection to get the right prices and just really see this industry that is podcast and internet radio really flourish in the time I've spent in it. And not necessarily because of me, it's the timing is everything. I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. That I was able to combine my love for marketing and my love for radio and actually build a career off of it. So when it looked like I was going to miss 3.5 to 4 hours of my day in the middle of the day, when I went to Evan to let him know that I was going to be stepping down at the end of the year, and it's just I wanted to focus on some marketing projects that I had in mind for myself, and I also wanted to focus on the shows. He with all due respect, like he understood. Like he tried to keep me. He was very kind. But when you see your employee that has like sacrificed so much to make sure that the team was successful, come to you and say, "I really love being on the radio. We're going to be on the radio for NDC for 2 hours, and it's going to take another hour and a half of my day." I think he understood that the hardest part for me, take away the time commitment, the stress that was involved in the business I was in, was leaving the 9 to 5, getting in the car, getting to Mike's place, like really clearing my mind, doing a fun job, and then getting in the car and going back, and then having to be like businessman Oscar again. That in itself was soul sucking because not because I didn't want to go back and do my job. It was fun, but like any job, not all of it's fun. There's a lot of real like just kind of administrative work you have to do, and you have to lead a team, and you have people counting on you, and all of that is not it didn't. Once we got the TNT gig, it just didn't seem to fit into what my goals for myself professionally were, and goals for the shows were professionally, and my just kind of happiness, you know. That adage that you can't take it with you is very true, but I also believe that you can find a nice, a kind of a balance. Like, for example, now I'm working with 2 or 3 different clients on a contract level, and I enjoy doing that because that's what I enjoy doing. I love doing the podcast. Like, you're going to see there's small changes that are coming, not to the podcast, but the website, and this is the year where TMOS just goes into another gear, and I think we're already in 6th gear. There's 7th gear. And we're going to continue bringing you amazing shows, and I hope that with the time that I've created outside of my 9 to 5, that I can apply those hours to TMOS as well.
I didn't think I could be any more jealous of your accomplishments, but now I am, because, I mean, 4 years ago, I was in a similar situation where I had the opportunity to, because I work in marketing. My company was flexible about giving me time so I could work on a morning show here locally. But as you know, the radio environment has changed, and they don't pay radio guys, dick anymore. And
no, they don't.
You can't live on that paycheck anymore. I know somebody in the local area who's been on a morning show for 25 years and hasn't even broken the $45,000 a year mark. This is a small market, but that's ridiculous. And
it is ridiculous, and that's the sad reality of this business, though.
So I made a choice 4 years ago to say I'm going to have to give up that portion because I would much rather be doing radio on a full-time basis, but it doesn't pay my bills. So thank God I've got this opportunity to work with you guys and do this, and I do radio on the weekends part-time. It's the only way that I can keep it. I got to keep it in my blood, but I'm so jealous of what you're able to do right now. But
look, it's a leap of faith, that's for sure. And that first week that you don't, but no, it would have been at the end of January when I stopped really going to the office. Like anybody, anybody knows, like you could give an end date, but if you have projects that are going into the first quarter, you have to, at least for myself, I had to finish them. Like I couldn't just walk away.
Yeah.
So I finished those projects out, but that first week where I sat there and I said, well, this is weird, and then it's scary, and then you're looking at your girlfriend that moves across the country, and you want to make sure that you can pay the mortgage, so you're just like, well,
Right.
this is, but the difference is this. I didn't want to be, much like when I was younger, Marcus, and when I got into radio, I was like 19 years old. I just always wanted to see if I could actually do it. Like I didn't want to have any regrets. And the beauty of what had happened is when I left terrestrial radio, I got into what was my formal education, marketing, which I always loved. And in itself, in a weird cosmic way, it created a way for myself to exercise my right and left brain. And the fact, like you said, I'm a lucky guy to be able to exercise my right and left brain now. And much like you find a way to do that, no one said, look, we put the mothballs in This Week in America. Like, let's be honest, it was a decent show, but it wasn't a great show, and it would only happen once in a while.
Right.
And what you've done with the program, you reach out to us, and you clearly have the pipes to do it. You have experience doing it, and we were blessed to have a guy like you reach out to us and say, I want to do this, but I want to do this right. So if anybody's within earshot of this conversation, I know it's easier said than done, and it's scary. It's scary for a guy like me to do what I just did. It was scary when I initially got into radio when I was younger. It was scary when I got fired the 3 times I was in terrestrial radio. It's the volatile business, as you know, Marcus. But you just got to believe in yourself, and you just got to keep grinding and sacrifice what you can without sacrificing too much, and find that balance. Just try to make yourself happy. And by happy, I don't mean you don't just get that job and you're happy. Happiness takes a lifetime for some people. But you would try to just find that one thing you're passionate about, and you can continue like grinding on it, whether it be on the weekends or a couple nights a week. You will find some sort of peace that I thought I could never find in my entire life. And I am blessed enough to have found it with this crew, and I'm blessed enough to have found it with the young lady in my life. But more importantly, like I wake up in the morning and I'm happy, you know?
Thank you for the compliment. I can speak, I believe, for every listener. I absolutely believe that you will be successful and you will make this dream come true for yourself, because you also, sir, have an extreme amount of talent. I listen to all your programs. You're great. You've been a great addition to TMOS. I've said it to Mike himself. I think TMOS now as a podcast is the best show that it's ever been. And I've been a longtime listener of Mike's, but this show is phenomenal. And now it's time for us to take a break. So when we get back, more talk with Oscar Santana right here on Omericast.
Hey everyone, Mike O'Mara here.
And hey, I'm Rob Spiewak.
We just want to remind you guys that we never listen to the Mark and Lowell show.
No, we're just kidding. This is really Oscar Santana.
And this is Buzz Burbank. How you guys doing? Listen, Mark and Lowell have a great show that they put together for you guys, so we really think that you should listen.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not. Nah, all right, let's let them know the real deal. This is Mark Ronick.
And this is Lowell Melser.
So please, we're begging you, listen to our show. You'll like it.
You're crazy, man.
The Mark and Lowell Show.
Every Thursday, you can get it on iTunes, markandlowell.com, or morebroadcasting.com.
Resistance is futile. It's the Mark and Lowell Show.
This segment of Omericast is brought to you by Strine Creative. Come on, you've seen what Gabe Strine has done for TMOS. Now you can put him and his team to work on all your graphic designs. Strine Creative is not just about round-headed DJs, it's branding and marketing for print, the web, and yes, animation. Let Strine Creative help your ideas come alive at strinecreative.com or click on their eye-catching ad on MikeOmeraShow.com. Welcome back to Omericast. I'm with Oscar Santana, and I don't want to keep you all day, but believe me, we could be talking all day because I really enjoy talking to you. But I want to
have a great time.
Thanks. I wanted to ask you real quick, any updates on the regulars?
Yeah, so the regulars, for those of you not in the know, is a television pilot which I shot now like a year and a half ago, where the initial concept was 2 guys traveling across the country and just going from bar to bar and showing America these kind of dives and these bars full of personality and the personalities within them. And there'll be a weekly show, 13-episode season. And the first show was shot in summer in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. It was cut up and pitched, and it was received really, really well. The one thing about the television industry, which I'm learning, is that it's kind of like the flavor of the week. For example, if you've watched any American Idol, you realize that American Idol was successful, and then The Voice came out, and then So You Think You Can Dance came out, and all these other shows in not necessarily that order, but they all became contest shows, you know?
Right.
Because they're successful. So at this point in television right now, it's kind of contest or goal-driven shows where there are risks and rewards that are actually being picked up. So the way we're modifying the regulars, it's not just about two guys traveling the country and checking out new bars and showing America kind of like a travel log. The show now will be kind of like a roll rule show where every show through the season, conceivably, we'd lose a contestant, and the final contestant at the end of the season would win a grand prize of $100,000 or something along those lines once the prizes are compiled. And Mike would be a judge. I would be one of the kind of the main regular that takes these contestants across the country. That's the initial premise. So it's the best of both worlds. You're able to kind of do a survivor pool of these barflies that we pick up across the country, and watch us go through the seasons and show how these like wannabe regulars are either, you know, bounced out of the bar or they're kept on the proverbial train. And that concept will be filmed by the end of the first quarter. I would say maybe sooner than that. We're nailing down the dates now. It's going to happen in Jimmy's Old Town Tavern. So there are talks that have been established and dates that have been put together. But as usual, when it comes to these things, you know, when it comes to radio, I'll tell you exactly how I feel. When it comes to TV, much like when I first did the first pilot, I just got on my knees and prayed that it came out and didn't look like someone shot it on a handy cam. And thank God the first one came out great. And if that's any indication, the second one will look great as well.
Oh, no doubt. So let me ask you about your relationship with social media, because of the fact that social media comes up for you. Earlier, you already mentioned the fact that you'd like to get to 10,000 followers on Twitter. Social media has been so important to your success, to the show's success. You are a fan of Facebook. You're not as obsessed with it as Rob is.
No.
But you're also not silent either. So really, what is your take? Do you really not understand the whole Twitter thing, or is this just...
No. I understand Twitter. I just, in a weird way, I just didn't have time before. And I know it's going to sound stupid, but I just didn't have time for it. And now I make an effort to, like on Twitter, and this is, I guess, my approach now. On Twitter, I will post aspects of my life or of the shows that I don't post anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of, and I got this playbook was given to me by my friend who has 30,000 followers on Chad Dukes, at Chad Dukes. You can follow him. He, especially if you're into wrestling and sports. So he said, and he told me this years ago. I just didn't have the time to actually put the effort it is into, because people want content. Now you can't kill them with content, because then you're just an annoying guy with all these tweets and all this information. But and in a weird way, I also felt like it was like you were bragging about yourself. Hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. And I had to kind of lose that. It was kind of this wall in front of me that said, I'm not, well, it doesn't seem that way. I'm just not really a bragger. I don't like telling people, oh, look at this, or I'm not that type of person.
Yeah.
So I decided that my approach is going to be more like content driven. Of like, if there's an interesting article I read about technology, I'm going to post it there. If there is something that I find interesting, an interesting app, or if there's something that I think is cool that I just picked up, I'm going to post it there. If there is something that's funny that just happened, I'm going to post it there. Now, Facebook in itself gives you a lot more creative control, where on Facebook I'll I'll probably do the same aspects of my life, but it won't be as intimate.
Yeah.
Because Twitter is so, it's like microblogging that you don't really have that much time to explain anything. So you either show a picture and a link or take a couple words and a picture, and that's all you have. But on Facebook, you can actually kind of speak your mind, especially if you're long-winded like I am.
I mean, for me, I always love Twitter because I'm kind of a scanner. So Twitter is a series of headlines with links to the content. So I scan the headlines, find what I want, click on the links that are appropriate, whereas Facebook for me tends to be a lot of long-winded individuals giving me a lot of details about their life that I could really care less about. But then on the Google...
Yeah, it is the world of me, you know?
Yeah, and on the Google Plus side, I see a lot more control about where my message is going. It's easier, at least, to control that message for me in Google Plus than it is in Facebook, even though I know both of them have those types of controls.
Oh, yeah. Look, I've been trashing Google Plus for 3+ years now, no pun intended, and I was wrong. We had Ann on the program, Tech 411, the other day, and he's a Google Plus user, and he explained to me, and it was basically a tweet, less than 140 characters, why Google Plus is so great. And to your exact point, Marcus Certa, that he can decide what he's viewing and who he's sharing it with without any effort, without a drop-down menu, without creating a list, without it doing anything. Google Plus does it for you already. When someone adds you, you put them in a circle and you're done.
Yes, exactly.
That's genius, you know?
Absolutely. One last thing, and then I want to let you go. I have to ask, how is...
Shannon, WQXI.
How's she doing?
Shannon?
Yeah, how's Shannon?
Shannon in the morning is doing great. You know what's so weird about this is I think about it. It's so strange, Marcus, because if you listen to the show for the past 3 years, you know that I was in a relationship that wasn't a healthy relationship before this relationship.
Yeah.
And in many ways during that entire fiasco, I blamed myself and I blamed the young lady I was in a relationship with. And I look back at that time, and while we both should take blame because you can't just be the only person that could take two people to be in an unhealthy relationship. It's almost embarrassing to think about the fact that I almost block it out that I shared so much about that unhealthy relationship. And with my new relationship, where it's more like a partnership, I feel like I don't talk about it as much as I did at the beginning of the relationship, not necessarily because I'm not as in love or it's not as new. It's simply because I feel in a weird way that I'm trying to filter myself without like inundating someone and like how happy I am with this person in my life. But I'm also a realist where I'm really gun shy to think about marriage, which I clearly would hope that happens. But we just celebrated our year anniversary. Perfect timing, Marcus, for that question. This past January, 10th of January.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And the year just blew by. By the way, I didn't know that women actually kept dates of when these things happened. And thank God she had mentioned, she goes, our anniversary's coming up. She goes, hey, it's the 21st. She did it in passing, a throwaway comment. And I was like, yeah, I know that. I was like, well, so if you're out there, figure it out, because they remember when and how, when things started, because we won't. And I'm happy. I think that we continue to learn about each other, but we're just taking it slow and trying to enjoy our lives together.
No, it's great. It sounds like in listening to you for these years, it sounds like your viewpoint on the relationships has developed in such a way, your maturity toward them has grown in such a way that I think you're not so douchebag 30s anymore. You're really...
No. I feel like I've grown up. Now, that being said, before you called me, I had an Xbox 360 controller in my hand, and I said, I got to call Marcus Certa at 4. It's 3:56. Let me get one more game in. So I don't know how much I've grown up, but there is, with experience, and I think Marcus, any one of our parents would have told us this. You either learn or you don't, and I'm trying to make the most of my opportunities.
Well, if it makes you feel better, when I get done with this interview, I'm going to go back to playing the Old Republic. So.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Nice.
So I'm not grown up either. And matter of fact, on that topic, just briefly, something that I didn't get into with Mike while I was down there is that in the Old Republic, one of my characters very often has sex with a really hot spy. So I think he's just playing the wrong game if he wants to have regular relations with his characters on his games. That's
yeah. I'm going to share that with him, and I think it's going to blow his mind because, look, Mike in his obsession with an online animation or an anime figure. I know it's not an anime, but that in itself, there's still a creepy line there that I just can't get behind.
Yeah, you say that, and then you guys are going down to spring break.
Yeah, that should be interesting. This is the first year of my life where I'm actually going to spring break, and I'm in my 30s. So I don't know how that's going to turn out. I know that there's going to be a lot of leering and lurking, and I'll try to keep that to a minimum, especially coming from the gentleman with, I would say, less than stellar spy skills. Because when Mike looks at a woman, and not that he does on a regular basis, a married man, he's happy, he's got a baby on the way. Yep. But who doesn't look? Mike looks like a woman, like my father looks like a woman. And the way my father looks at a woman is if he just saw a car accident. There's no like drive-by glare. He stops and stares and sees how he can help. And that's how Mike does it. Like, he just stares. He's like, oh, my God, someone's getting hurt. I was like, no, you're just staring at her ass or staring at, that pretty girl. And you're embarrassing both of us because, hello, you're supposed to just do a quick glance and pretend like nothing's there.
Well, we're looking forward to these shows because with the cast of characters that is going down there is going to be everything from sunburned bald heads to what I suspect could possibly be somebody in a drunken stupor face down in the sand.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll all come back alive, and there's the 5 of us.
Yeah.
And hopefully, no shenanigans that involves jail time, heavy fines, or any dissolving of relationships. So stay tuned.
Yeah, absolutely. Oscar, thank you for coming on Omericast this week. I really appreciate it. It's been great to talk to you. Thanks for the advice while I was down in D.C. I had a great time while I was out.
Great.
All success to you, man. And for everybody listening, please follow or subscribe to Oscar on Facebook. He's on Twitter at Oscar Radio. Are you set up on Google+?
I am on Google+. I don't know which handle I'm going to use, but if you look for Oscar Santana, you will find me and you will find my picture.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Oscar, again for coming on the show.
Thank you, and to all the 2 people that listen to this program, Marcus, God bless you. You're doing the Lord's work.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Have a good one, and I'll be listening all week. Have a great series of shows coming up.
All right, take care.
And with that, again, I can't thank Oscar enough for coming on to the show. It's been a lot of fun.